Hello viewers, welcome to QTP functional testing videos. Myself Uday. In this video, I would like to demonstrate about sub-procedures in VBScript. Alright, in any automation development or in any programming language, where we have few lines of code which will be needed repeatedly. What I mean is, the same set of code will be reusable in multiple places. Alright, that code block we call it as a procedure. In VBScript, we have two types of procedures. One is sub procedure and another one is function procedure. In this video, I will be covering more on sub procedures. In my next video, I will demonstrate about function procedures. Alright. So to start with, what I will do is I will record a small session here. So alright, this is the sample flight reservation application. I am recording a small uh, test scenario or functionality. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm just clicking on a file menu, choosing a open order option, and I'm choosing this checkbox and entering some order number 7. Alright, so when I click on OK, it opens the uh, flight reservation order number 1. Right, so for example, say I want to open order numbers from 1 to 5. So for that, if I do like this, order number 1 here, order number 2, the order number 3, order number 4, and this is my order number 5. The script is very simple. This line, what it will do is it will click on file menu and chooses open order option, and after that this statement will check the checkbox and enters the order number, and after that it clicks on the OK button. So in order to open all these 5 order numbers, if I write a code like this, uh, is the code looking readable or is it look very maintainable? Let me execute this and show whether it is opening all the 5 order numbers or not first, so that we will have, as you can see, first, second, third, fourth, 5, these are the order numbers which the script has opened, right? So to show this, I'm just going to the results folder where you can see it has opened all the order numbers which I have mentioned: 1, order number 2, order number 3, order number 4, like that, right? So when I see code like this, it is not at all a readable format, and if anything goes wrong, it is very hard to maintain this kind of code. And no one, developers or automation tester, no one will accept the code like this. So what I mean to say here is these 4 lines of code are very repetitive in nature, right? As you can see, as per our functionality, these 4 lines of code is common, right? Rather than creating this much of redundant code, what I will do is I will put this code block in a procedure, right? So in this video, as I told you, I will be covering more on sub procedures, right? So how can I declare a sub procedure? The general syntax that we need to follow to define a sub procedure is, the syntax is like this. This can be, the sub procedure can be private or public. All right, after that, this is the sub is the keyword. All right, you should mention the sub, and after that subroutine name, whatever it is. As per our example, what I will do is I will give uh, like the sub procedure name as open order. All right, so after that you should put these braces, and you put whatever the statement that you want in your script as per your needs. You script whatever the statement, like what are the repetitive statements that you have in your automation or development, you should put all these statements, and this sub procedure is ended with a statement keyword called and sub, right? This is the syntax of sub procedures in VBScript. All right, so you put whatever the code block here, you can write as many number of lines of code as per your requirement. All right, so I will put the same thing in my script here. So what I'm doing here is, um, so by default you can omit this like private or public. By default the specifier is public. All right, so what I will do is sub open order, I will put this code here. All right, this is a sub procedure. All right, so there is a slight difference between the functions and sub procedures in VBScript. So what is the difference? The difference is a sub procedure cannot return any value, right? That is the main difference. A sub procedure cannot. So from this function I cannot return any value out of it. All right. So and some of the functions as per this, like for this what I will do is I will put a for loop. Okay, for I equal to 1 to 5. We will be covering for loops and all in my next videos. As of now, just remember the syntax of the for loop as well. All right, so I am just passing the order number as I variable, because in the first instance I will have a value of 1, and in the after that it will invoke this sub procedure. These statements will be executed, and once the execution is completed, once it reaches the end sub, again the control will be in this for loop with a I value of 2, and the same code of same block code will be executed for 5 times. All right, so what generally when I say procedure, what does it mean is, for some set of code, for this 4 lines or 5 lines, 10 lines or 100 lines, you are just giving a name for these 4 lines of code, or as many name, like the length of the sub procedure. So whenever you want all these 4 lines of code, these 4 lines code be represented with this procedure name, right? So now let me debug it so that you will see where the control is going on. As you can see, the first, because this is a sub procedure, it will not be directly go into this part. First it will, this is the first executable statement. At this moment I value is 1. All right, I am invoking c, I am invoking this sub procedure. Now when I'm invoking it, the control will look it in our total script part. It will look for this sub procedure, and the oh sorry, oh it's my bad. One second here. What I would like to see here is, I will this is the, like argument list. So a procedure can have 0 length arguments, or as many, like 1, 10 or whatever, as per the needs you can include as many number of arguments that you need. All right, so this order number I want to open. All right, so see, whatever the order number that I am passing from here, that will be invoked here, and the same order number will be opened here. All right, let me debug it. As you can see, I value is 1 now, and the control, because we are invoking this sub procedure, the control comes to here, and now the order number has a value of 1, right? So it will do, it just clicks on file open, and after that, as you can see, it checks the checkbox, and after that it enters the value of 1 here, and after that it clicks on OK button. All right, once the end sub statement is reached, again the control will come here, Alright, and now the value of I is 2. So this 2 value is passed to order number. Alright, as you can see, order number is 2 now. So this these four lines of code will be executed, and once this is executed, the control will comes here, and at the time I value will be incremented to 3, and the 3 will be passed to here. Like this, all these 5 lines of code will be executed, right? So let me execute it. As you can see, 2 3 4 5 is got executed. Did you see the difference? Earlier the code was like 50 20 lines of code, right? But all this now got reduced to hardly like 10 lines of code, right? And the code is also more readable format. Alright, so that is the biggest advantages of procedure, where if you have some number of lines of code which are repetitive in nature, put that code block in a procedure block. The procedure can be sub or a function. Alright, so this is like overall about the sub procedure. Now we will see how we can call different ways of calling in, what are the different points are there in the sub procedure. For this, what I will do is I will go to some small examples, like very generic examples. All right. So say now I have a sub procedure called print val or something. All right. So basically, it will print some value. Say hello world. All right. So now, how can I invoke this method? At this moment, this sub procedure doesn't have any arguments. Alright. So now, how can I invoke this sub procedure? So by just keeping the sub procedure name, if it doesn't have any argument, then if you just give that procedure name, will invoke this sub procedure. Let me execute it. As you can see, it calls this sub procedure, and this print statement, whatever the content there in this print will is printed here. All right, and also you can put this in a double parenthesis. All right, there is no difference between putting double parenthesis or without having parenthesis when there is no argument list in a sub procedure. All right, so even if you put like this also, it will print you the same thing. As you can see, it prints the same thing, right? And one more way you can call a sub procedure is like you can use the call keyword. All right, as you can see, it will print the same thing now. All right, so it looks very fine, right? When there are no arguments, these are the different ways that you can call. For example, say I have some value called val1. All right, how can I call at that point of time? You cannot just call by specifying the sub procedure name. It will report you an error. All right, because there is a mismatch in number of arguments. You should specify the whatever the argument that you have to, so whatever here, see, the function signature requires at least one variable to be passed. For that reason, so we have to pass one value, right? You can pass say some value, and whatever the value that I'm sending here, I am printing here. All right, so my value is here 5. I am passing to this variable. All right, val will have the value of 5, and I'm just printing this value. So for that, you need to pass like this. Once you execute it, it will print 5. All right, in the same way, you can use call. It will print 5. All right, so now, for example, say you need to print two values. All right, there is a slight difference existing in having a having number of argument with 1 2. That is the reason I am just explaining, like uh, how we can invoke a sub procedure when it is a single argument and when it have multiple arguments. Alright, so here I have val1 and val2. So what I would like to do here is I'm just concatenating these two values by just putting a space in between. Alright, so now how I can call this? So when I say print val of here, what I have to do, I have to pass two values here. Alright, so when I execute it, as you can see, when you are passing two values, you cannot pass in this manner. Alright, for that what you have to do is you have to put a space and you need to remove those parentheses. Alright, as you can see, now it will print 5 and 10. Did you guys see this? 5 and 10 are separated by space. Alright, so now we will see how we can call using call statement. If I call like this, it will report an error. As you can see, the test run cannot due to the syntax error. Whenever you are using call, if it's have more than one parameter, you should enclose those values in a parenthesis. Now, as you can see, this procedure will print 5 space 10. So that is the difference between calling a sub procedure with 0 or 1, and if you are passing more than one argument, you have to call in this manner. Alright, I think you might have understand the difference when calling a sub procedure with the argument list, right? So there are some situations like where you wanna in a sub procedure and some point of time you want to come out of that sub procedure. Alright, how can we do that? For example, what I'm going to say here is, say I have a for loop for I equal to 1 to 5. Alright, the same method, like sorry, I have deleted it. Say some val. Alright, if value equal to 3, so this is like this is the syntax of if condition. I will be demonstrating these in conditional statement in my next video. Alright, so what I would like to do here is, if the value is 3, then I would like to exit my sub. I don't want to execute any execute any code. Just let me finish it up this code. So here what I'm doing here is, I would like to repeat it the same procedure, this procedure. Alright, if the I value is 3, I don't want to print that value. For example, say they here we have a single line, you might have 10 number of lines, whatever is the length of the code, that I don't want to execute when the value is 3, right? At that point of time, at any point of time, if you want to come out of that sub, what you have to do is you have to use this keyword like exit space sub. So after that, what it will at this point, when this statement executed, it will not execute any other statement, and that the control directly flows from that statement to end of the sub procedure. Alright, so let me debug it so that you will get a more clarity. As you can see, now I value is 1. Now so this one value I am passing to val, so val 1 is equal to 3, no, right? So it will print val. So at this point of time, val is having a value of 1, so it will print 1. Alright, after that high value is 2 is equal to 3, no, right? So it will execute this statement and the control comes to for loop again, and now I value is 3. At this point of time, val 3 is equal to 3, right? Then this statement is executed. So the control flows from this statement to directly to end sub. Observe it. As you can see, it came out of the sub and it didn't print the value of 3 here. Alright. So when I say end sub, again the control comes to the place where from where it was invoked. Alright. As you can see, 4 again, for 4 it is 4 is not equal to 3. That is the reason again it will print 4 and 5. Like that, whenever you would like to have, like, come out of the sub procedure, you have to use exit sub. Alright, as you can see the output, it will display 1, 2, 4 and 5, whereas it will not print 3, because at this point when the value is 3, it is just coming out of that sub procedure. Alright, so now, and another point to mention here is, we cannot use sub procedures in an expression. For example, say, what I mean to say here is, sub print val, say something x equal to 10. Alright, so I just want to say print hi. Alright, I would like to call this sub procedure here. Alright, when I invoking like this sub procedure, you can directly invoke a sub procedure like this, private val or something, but you cannot put that into an expression. Like this is a string and this ampersand we use it for the concatenation. Both ampersand and plus we can use for the string concatenation in VBScript, right? So now this becomes an expression, right? You cannot use these sub procedures in an expression. When I execute this, as you can see, it will report you an error, right? So you cannot invoke sub procedures in an expression. All right, and like, uh, in another example, you can call another procedure in a procedure. So what I mean to say here is, say I have a method 1. So here what I'm saying is, say print I am in method 1. All right, so in this method I am trying to invoke another method called method 2. All right, if the method 2 is existing here, it should be invoked. Print I am in method 2. So now if I call directly method, okay, method 1, say this one is a method 1 and this one is a method 2. Alright, so when I invoke like this, the control first comes to here, and this whatever the print statement is there, it will execute this. After that, it will method 2. The method 2 is another sub procedure. Like, you can call any procedures, any sub procedures or functions within a procedure. Like this is generally we call it a nesting. Right. So when I can execute it, as you can see, it will print both the methods. I am in method 1 and method 2. Right. Now, in QTP, you may come across a situation like, whatever the method that you are defining inside an action. Now, as you can see, we are in actions. All right. So, for example, say I'm having a sub procedure called print message. All right. So, what I'm here in print, I'm printing hello world. All right, so when I print this like, when I invoke this sub procedure in the same action, it will invoke that procedure sub procedure. All right, but if you invoke this procedure in different action which is inaccessible, so what I'm trying to say here is, say my sub procedure is existing in action 1 and now I would like to invoke in action 2. Alright, when I'm trying to execute it, at this point of time it will report an error because that sub-procedure context will not come to action 2. So what is the context is there within the action 1 itself, which cannot come to action 2. Alright, that is the reason it is reporting an error. For example, in this situation, how you would like to go, like, you want to create one sub procedure which can be accessible in all the places. How can we do that? So for that, what we can do is we can have a function library. All right. So something like whatever the method that is existing here, I will put it in a function library. Control X. I'm just saving this as a function library, say somewhere in E folder, say sample file.vbs. I'm saving this function in a sample file. Alright, and I will associate that function library to my test. Alright, say I'm just creating a new test and I will associate the test here. Alright, so in resource, you just in order to associate any function library, what you have to do, you have to click on file menu, go to settings, and in resources tab, as you can see, associate function library, just click on a plus sign, and in the browse button you can wherever where this is our VBS file, right? So you can choose that file and click open, apply. Okay, now if I invoke that method, I can able to access that method in my action 1. Alright, let me execute it. As you can see, hello world got displayed. Alright, so let me how whether this function is accessible in action 2 or not. Alright, so in my first function, what I'm doing is I'm just printing some hi or something, and after that I'm invoking a new method. Alright, so here I'm calling this sub procedure. Alright, so when I execute it, the control will be first executed in action 1. After that it invokes the action 2. Then this print message, like this sub procedure is accessible here because the sub procedure we associated will be in global in context and which can be accessed to any number of actions in a test. Alright, let me execute it. As you can see, in action 1 hi is there, so hi got printed. After that the execution comes to action 2, it invokes this method and the hello world, like the print message in this sub procedure got executed and hello world got displayed here. Alright, so now uh, uh, while demonstrating this, like syntax, I have explained to you about private and public, right? So let's see about that as well. So here by default, if you didn't specify any access specifier, that is that is by default is public. So when I say public, what does it mean is, like, one second, which can be accessible to any of the resources associated with that function library. Alright, whereas when I say private, let me execute here itself. What I will do here is, okay, say now I'm in a QTP test. This is a quick test, and when I say here public or private, which is accessible because I am executing in this same context. This is my script area. When I am invoking it, it will invoke whether it is a public or private. As you can see, public, when I specify the access specifier as public, it printed it, when I am specifying it as a private also, which will execute that, because I have different. When I say private, something like private means which is within that context. So at this moment the context is within the same script. Alright, so for example, if I have the same method in an external file like this, and the context is different, this script execution context is different and this script is different. So when I mean to say, this is the context of the script is different. So here I will show you, like when I say public, because even by default it is public, it is not to when I say, like, if you want this procedure is accessible to all the actions or anywhere, you have to declare it as a public. Alright, when I say public, now it will print the message. Sorry, something went wrong in here. Let me say public, what's wrong? Oh, sorry, my bad. I forgot to associate it. Open. One second, sorry. So the error we got is because of we didn't associate this function library. Alright, now I can see it. So when I run it, as expected, it has displayed that message because the specifier is public. Alright, so if I change it to private, let's see whether we can access that method or not. Alright, so when I'm trying to run it, it will throw an error because the context will not be available here. Alright, because as you can see, the private method will be accessible within this file itself, which cannot be accessible to QTP. Alright, so when I said to give further clarity, what I will do is I will define another procedure, same call print. Alright, which in turn will call this method. Okay, as you can see, if I call this method now, so any method which is existing in this file can access this private method, but this method cannot be accessible outside of this file or the script. So if I call this method now, because as you can see, this method is existing in this file, and this method can be accessible for any of the methods which is existing in this script file, right? Because now this subroutine is public. Now when we call this, the control comes here. After that, this print message subroutine will be invoked because this method is accessible in this file. Alright, so let me execute this. Yeah, so if I run it, it should invoke that private method. As you can see, internally it invoked the private sub procedure. Alright, so that is how we will be working with sub procedures in VBScript. That's all in this video. Thanks for watching. Please leave your comments about this video. Thank you.